Alrighty, guys, welcome here to the WCA America Open League Finals. My name is Solid Jake, and I'm joined here at the desk by That's Admiral. Dude, it's a pleasure to be casting with you.
Yeah, same. This is my first Heroes of the Storm event. Was at BlizzCon, got a chance to check out the finals that happened there, where, of course, Cloud9 emerged victorious. But this one, WCA Open League qualifiers, at this point, we're going to find out which of these two teams is going to emerge victorious today and take home that $8,000 first prize.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot on the line. Obviously, both these teams will be advancing. They have qualified for the World Finals in China, joining Tempo Storm and Cloud9, who have already qualified. Over $12,000 for the Open League Finals right here. And then the World Finals prize pool in China later this year will be over $250,000. It's $250,000 right there.
Yeah, WCA, of course, known for these giant prize pools in their esports events. And both of these guys, in the finals, they're qualified for it. And as you said, we had the two qualify from the pro event. This is the Open League Finals, which is, of course, single elimination brackets, best of 3. And all 10 maps allowed for this one. So we're going to find out which of these maps these guys are favoring. And I can't wait to see which ones they decide to take and how they're going to fight on those maps.
There's a lot of, it's a best of 3, right? Not a best of 5. So there's a lot of really volatile strategies you can bust out on something like maybe Haunted Mines. Maybe you want to bust out a secret strategy on Blackheart Spy. We really don't know what to expect, but especially with Artanis in the mix, that new bruiser, he's not super popular in the competitive meta, but he can still throw off your opponents.
Yeah, we didn't see it at Worlds at all. It's available now. I know you yourself. That you're a big Artanis player.
Yeah, I've played way too much.
What do you think of that hero? Where does it actually fit in these lineups? Who's likely to play it from these two teams? As you can see here for the brackets, Cognitive Gaming, they lost to compLexity in the upper bracket where they faced off against Panda Global. Were able to emerge victorious in there, so now this is the revenge match. Can they beat compLexity when the prize money is on the line, when the pressure is all there?
Yeah, so Cog versus compLexity, Cog versus Panda Global, that happened earlier today. So I mean, this is a rematch from something that happened just today. So adapting to the drafts you saw earlier in the upper bracket finals, adapting to that, figuring out what your opponents might want to try against you here. I mean, they've had the time to explore those options over the last couple of hours. And I'm just pumped to see exactly what kind of strategy they see, because we weren't actually privy to those matches. They were played off stream, so there was no broadcast, and we have no idea what they have in store for us.
Yeah, can they use the information they got in the first match to their advantage coming into the second one? That's really the big question in this, because with that extra $5,000 on the line, second place takes on $3,000. That's $1,000 a piece. I mean, this is a pretty big best of 3 that these guys are playing.
That's some phenomenal math, Admiral. No wonder you're a Hearthstone caster.
It takes all kinds to be able to count up lethal with those end turns.
I can't do it. I know that much. Now, all right. So honestly, this is a big matchup. Now, although both these teams will go to China, it's a lot of money on the line, like you mentioned. And it sounds like we're actually ready for the first draft of this best of 3. But before we get into it, be sure to head on over to Twitter, tweet us at WCA America, and use the hashtag WCA2015 with your predictions for this match.
Yeah, you can tweet at SolidJakeGG or at That's Admiral as well. What champions do you want to see with Artanis in the mix? Are we going to see some metagame mix-ups right here? But we're getting straight into this draft right now, as the first ban that we see is Zagara.
Okay, Infernal Shrines. The newest battleground, of course, we have Towers of Doom on the way very soon. It's on the PTR right now. But Infernal Shrines, having Vision with Zagara and the Power of Maw is a great element to have in your composition. Remove that. Abathur also very much about Vision with the mines. You can throw those toxic nests down, and you can be split-soaking across this very large battleground. So, the safe picks, but then that's probably the best assassin in the entire game there, Admirable.
Yeah, I would definitely say so, and especially on Infernal Shrines, the AoE around those objectives, so important to be making sure that you can take control of them and really create a lot of space, have a lot of control of what's happening. And on the other side, Leoric and Sylvanas picked up, and when we talk about some of the best picks that are out there, Sylvanas does a great job at backline damage, and Leoric, wonderful tank to have on your front line, a lot of AoE damage, and once again, creating a lot of space for your team.
Yeah, scary, spooky skeletons. I mean, the two dead heroes. It's rather interesting to see Sylvanas picked up that early, though. I mean, yes, this is Leoric, again, revive. He's just constantly in your face. Never seems like he's ever dead due to his trait. But it's definitely not a common pickup to see this early. And then the response with Sonya and Tassadar, that's a much more explosive style for Cognitive.
Yeah, and I would also kind of like the way that these picks are working out versus Sylvanas and Leoric. You know, this is a lot of sustained damage that we see from compLexity's side. So one of the ways that you can fight against that is just to have characters that can fight through sustained damage. Sonya's got a lot of heal going on with those AoEs. Tassadar shields, they're great at taking out lots of damage that's coming over a period of time. it looks like they have a great team fight set up right here, and then coupled with that burst from Jaina, they're just going to be able to go toe-to-toe with this front line, it looks like so far.
But I'm interested to see what compLexity wants to ban out. When you see Sonya in that front line, they might be a little wary of the power of something like Ancestral Heal, Divine Palm, or of course Divine Shield from Uther, but they already have Tassadar, so I don't know if it even really matters if they were to ban out a support.
Yeah, picking up 2 supports certainly will cut into your damage a lot. Jaina has a bunch of burst damage, of course, but that's going to come on relatively high cooldowns. You know, she can't just sit there and spam the entire time. So I'm kind of agreeing with you here. Uther feels like it would be a little bit out of place for a ban. If Cognitive picks it up, again, just their damage has fallen off so much. Can you just build a tanky enough front line that you can fight through that?
It's possible. I mean, Muradin would be really good to try to deny some of that auto attack power of Sonya with Reverberation. Of course, having the stuns are great, but they're actually going to go ahead, ban out Kill Fast, so they're worried about those ranged DPS. I mean, already having Jaina and Tassadar, they're not going to want to give them a third. And this is really just saying to me that compLexity is trying to do something weird. Maybe they're trying to do a bit of a split push style. Again, Infernal Shrine, such a large battleground with Sylvanas and Leoric. We don't really know a lot about their plans for this composition, but I'm suspecting this could actually be a Lost Vikings composition busted out here, which is incredibly uncommon for Infernal Shrines.
Yeah, and that actually would make a ton of sense, too, given what you just mentioned. You know, having Sylvanas, the ability to shut off those tower attacks, to really clear waves very fast, the ability to just keep that lane control and have heavy pressure while those objectives come up. Maybe you could just take advantage of it. Vala in Malfurion gets picked up, and this is, once again, they're doing a great job, I think, of fighting the damage that it looks like Cognitive is going to be putting out at this point. You know, they have Malfurion to, again, continue to fight against that sustained damage going to be coming out, as well as being able to recover from the burst.
Right.
I'm kind of liking the way this draft is looking right now for compLexity Gaming.
It's so unorthodox, though, in every way. And wow, they just powered through the end of the draft. So they go Uther, Johanna to round out their composition. So again, this is a big focus on keeping that Sonya in the face to do max damage. And then you have Johanna to be that big frontline peel, pull them together. Again, just provide the additional engage with Blessed Shield. But Falstad, a massive disengager. Like, this composition from compLexity is quite unorthodox. It's very old school with Sylvanas and Leoric thrown on top.
Yeah, I would definitely say it is, but if you look at the way that Cognitive's lineup has really panned out, this is really a 2-threat composition. If they can manage to sustain through that double threat, I feel like they have a much better chance of out-damaging them in those long fights, especially with super efficient heals from Malfurion.
Yeah, super efficient heals, and when just fighting over the objective in general, right? They're going to have the better fight. Like you said, they have the heals. If they need to get that disengage for the heals, you just Mighty Gust the enemy team away. You pop that Tranquility, your team heals up, you re-engage, you have Strafe, just so much damage available. It's a very different take, right? It's about having the longer team fight, like you mentioned, and they're going to excel in doing that. But if Sonya can get in there and get onto Malfurion, he's in a bad spot, right? Malfurion will melt so quickly.
And that's really, I think, part of what the Sylvanas pick is about, too. You know, when you get towards that level 16 talent and you have that damage amplification, Leoric's going to do a good job at fighting Sonya in that spot. You know, the Drain Life is going to put a lot of pressure on her health as well. Have those heals from Malfurion as well as the roots. Sonya can kind of just get trapped in the wrong spot, and then with that damage amp, they might just be able to burst her down.
It's entirely possible. I'm excited for it. Infernal Shrines will be the first matchup of the day. We're seeing some crazy new compositions. Falstad rising the meta. We saw him played a fair amount in the grand finals at BlizzCon 2015 by Cloud9, just busting out they busted out Falstad, they busted out Rexar, heroes that we don't typically see all that common. And now it's trickling down into the meta. Yeah, they played Murky. That was cool. They had killable comp, man.
Yeah, I mean, that was a wonderful game to see. They just kept picking these super tanky heroes and kind of just trying to sustain damage, and you didn't really know where their lineup was going, and then the Murky pick kind of made everything come together.
Alrighty, well, I don't know if we'll see Murky today. We'll find out, but game number 1 has begun on Infernal Shrines, and on the blue side, that is in fact compLexity. Hans will be on Vala. It's going to be Jack Smith playing as
my magic
Johanna? It's such a weird skit. Sylvanas, apparently. We actually have Chef playing Malfurion. He is, of course, a support player returning to Heroes of the Storm just recently. Trummel on Falstad, and then we have Caterpillar on Leoric.
Yeah, we take a look at red sides. For compLexity here. We have Syracuse, he's playing on Tassadar. We got Glorong, he's playing on...
that's Sonya.
Yeah, on Sonya. Look at that mount, too. That's a sick mount.
Yeah, the Void Speeder.
Uther for Icana. Take a look at Hospital. He's going to be running around as Jaina, it looks like. And Psylol.
That's
Look at that skin.
The mount spam on the new Falstead pirate skin. He's just whistling wildly. I've actually never experienced that.
Yeah, a lot of showmanship going on at the beginning here. 4 heroes in the mid lane, while 5 on the other side. Leoric is in this top lane though, and it looks like he's going to be kind of just soaking that top lane to begin with. And it looks like finally we see how they want to split up their teams. Looking like it's going to be a 4 bottom, 1 top split.
Yeah, and Falstead does have to rotate down to the bottom to make sure they get that soak. So far, just nicely done here on the blue side here for compLexity, making sure they get that max soak. Looking at the talents very quickly, we can see that Lost Soul was picked up here, which is actually a rather uncommon talent to see for Sylvanas.
Yeah, that is really a curious one to me. You know, that really kind of telling of the fact that they want to be using that level 16 effect on that damage amplification. Make sure they get that rolling as often as possible to help keep their damage output as high as they need it to.
Yeah, they're going to have to see what they can do throughout this game. But right now, just a lot of safe, rotating around between the mid and bottom lane, making sure they keep eyes on Hans, just stay in the back line, playing very safe as Glauer and Syol do, in fact, put a bit of pressure on. But they're rotating back as the first shrine is being activated in the bottom.
Yeah, just making sure they can soak as many of these experience waves as they can, trying to keep on even footing, make sure you're not losing any ground for this first shrine. And, you know, say you roll into this fight, your opponents haven't quite hit level 3 just yet. That could be the difference between winning and losing that fight. As first shrine is bottom, not a lot of action going on. It looks like
they're giving it up.
Yeah,
They're giving it up. They're leaving Trumbull in the bottom. He can rotate very effectively, and of course, he just wants to soak for his season marksman and power that attack. But with Sylvanas pressuring, with the help of both Vala and Malfurion, Falstead now flying up to the top lane as well, they're going to be able to push this really effectively. And that first Punisher at the start of the game isn't all that strong.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about this trade-off for a second here. I mean, they've completely sacrificed the first objective. It didn't even look like they had intentions of contesting it. And they've just traded instead for a little bit of the infrastructure, as well as just a little bit of additional experience here. How does this benefit them in the long term? Like, what's the game plan when you see something like this happening? What is their major concern?
I mean, I guess you just kind of go with it, right? By the time you rotate up, you're abandoning the objective to try to defeat an Immortal. Oh my goodness, Sylvanas did get picked off first blood of the game, but Glaurung a bit overextended here, gets the heals, the self-heal on himself, keeping him alive, but no, trades out Falstead, 2 for 1, well worth it there, and now Chef is in a terrible spot. Hans trying to get the peel, but Malfurion, one of the least mobile supports in the entire game, will end up falling here. An excellent start for Cognitive.
Yeah, really out of position right now, but Vala does not have the damage to really capitalize on this. She's going to get stuck in a bad spot too, and that stun is going to clear us out. A little bit of damage from Jaina. Falstad's going to move in while Sylvanas trying to get those auto attacks in, but it looks like Jaina might be able to just slip out. Falstad looking for that. Can't quite get it, and just by the skin of their teeth, we see 2 members escape. And wow, what a great fight that was for them. Deep in enemy territory, able to come out on top.
Iacona with the body blocking there just was able to keep Hospital alive for such a long time. He does end up falling here in the middle lane, but still massive props to him for that play. But all things considered, as effective as that 4-2 trade was for Cognitive, the experience is still dead, even actually in favor of compLexity, due to their superior soaking, due to that split push that we saw in the top lane.
Yeah, and a lot of that too is Leoric during that entire fight was bottom lane soaking more experience. So, you know, those kills, they do add up over time, but if in these early stages of the game, this could largely just be a trade-off. You know, how much is the map control and just the additional experiences worth? Is now we finally see compLexity. They want to take this camp in the top left, and this is great timing for them. You know, when this, they want this camp to be here right as this objective is about to spawn to give Cognitive some sort of decision to make. Do they want to be fighting the objective, or do they want to let that lane split push those mercenaries?
And that's also the lane where we saw the wall go down completely. So that's definitely a threat, right? They need to respond to it. But fortunately to them, the shrine is in the middle of the map, so it's not too far away from that top lane that they desperately do need to defend, because taking too much damage on your fort at this point, not really optimal.
Yeah, but at the same time too, now this is an objective that they kind of need to win at this point. If they lose this objective and they have that camp pushing in the top lane, this could really put a number on their infrastructure at 4 minutes, 5 minutes into the game.
Admirable, I don't think we're going to even see compLexity go for the objective. They have Falstad and Hans both pushing up this bottom lane. Sylvanas just getting that soak mid, keeping the pressure off their structures themselves, and Leoric holding top. No emphasis whatsoever on going for the objective, but we see that Cognitive is responding down in the bottom. Glaurung applying a lot of damage, taking too much himself. The heal from Uther just in time. No one ends up going down in this little skirmish in the bottom.
Yeah, the mobility from Falstad also able to dodge some of that damage from Jaina. And the second wave of that Blizzard is really one of the devastating aspects of it. The pressure they've put has forced Cognitive to respond to this. And then meanwhile, at the Shrine, you take a look, Leoric's just doing work here by himself.
Yeah, but Tassadar is getting most of those last hits on the objective. Johanna with that Nightake spawn. Oh, a big steal from Caterpillar, taking a few away there, but it is 29-8 this point in time. Problem being, both teams almost level 10. Johanna has fallen here, so this might be a situation where we actually do see compLexity rotate up to try to get that Immortal.
Not only that, but they hit level 10 first in this fight, so now it's super dangerous for Cognitive to contest this objective while they have those heroic abilities up, and so it looks like compLexity, the heavy pressure they applied to bottom pulled enough attention that this is the result of it. They're trying to rotate up, and instead compLexity's just getting picks from it.
Yeah, they just got picked up quite a few times. What was just a dead even game now has nearly a level lead. Many heroics were spent in that exchange. We see all the heroics still available on the side of compLexity, which is why they're quickly getting back into battle. They want to try to stall this out. It is 31-34 in terms of the count for those last hits on the skeleton. Johanna, a big Nightake spawn, 36-36. It's so close. One more for Cognitive will seal the deal. Can they get it? Yes, they will. No! It was actually stolen by compLexity at the last moment.
Yeah, and they're forced to just back off of this fight at the moment. And that Punisher, now suddenly the tables have kind of turned. I mean, this is the risk versus reward of having these, side lane pressure comps happening, is that sometimes it can just backfire.
Oh, this is actually awful. We can see Entomb used, just connecting on Johanna, not getting anything done. So that is several heroics on cooldown. Just Wailing available right now, strafe ready in 2 seconds. They're going to need those abilities for this defense. Sylvanas now making their way down, looking for that big Wailing arrow. Stalling out Tassadar, now vulnerable. Now they use Dimensional Shift, and Blessed Shield used to try to get this escape on out for compLexity, but with that strafe, they just need to keep walking away.
Yeah, but Wraithguard aggressively to try to get some sort of position here, but nothing really to come of it. I mean, not a lot of pick potential on either side in that fight. Everyone's kind of scattered. It's a very wide open lane, and not a lot of movement impairing effects on either side right now. So until just a big fight breaks out, it's usually just a lot of duking it out back and forth, some punches thrown. Not really any major exchanges. But now finally this camp towards the bottom. Great rotations here from Cognitive to make sure they pick up this camp and at the same time try to control these lanes. But Sylvanas got a little bit of pressure moving in the mid lane as well, but it looks like this rotate up is going to force this off.
Yeah, she was able to clean up that Merc camp in the mid and get hers a little bit of space, but as you see, they will be evaporated quickly. Jackson needs to use that Haunting Wave, does manage to slip away, dodges the Frostbolt, but that beautiful Condemn forces out the Wailing Arrow. Jackson will end up falling, almost trading out, but there's just not enough damage here. Falstad trying to duel it out in the top, could try to fly in for a battle, not looking like he wants to do that right now.
Yeah, just a little bit overextended there and gets punished by the Condemn from Johanna as well as the stun from Uther. And so that pick does give them a little bit extra time, but what can they do with this time in the meantime? It's really, at this point, just a relief of pressure.
Yeah, I mean, again, they just kind of nullified any pressure that could have existed on the map. Tassadar did a nice job defending. We saw Falstad trying to push out this lane, but of course Tassadar able to shield structures, the one hero in the game without Mule that can give you that defensive advantage, other than Abathur, of course. Nicely done there. Third Shrine of the game is now available, and it looks exciting. Nope. Considering activating it, just backing away, waiting for his team to make their way down.
Yeah, Cognitive gets the first camp up here. Meanwhile, Leoric was working on that top camp as well. They finally get it. It's a little bit late, so Cognitive going to be the first one on this shrine, and so they're going to have the ability to try to take advantage of this. Night takes pawn does so much work on this map as far as these shrines are concerned.
That full Condemn build. Now, this is a situation that have to be very careful. A Force Wall can really just lock you out in these spots, but a beautiful damage going out. Divine Shield has to be used. Condemn connecting on 3 targets, but Mighty Gust with a huge disengage. Now, Glaurung is all alone. So much damage. Blessed Shield does get thrown out, but it is just barely enough to keep Glau alive. And now Caterpillar on Leoric, a little bit far forward. The mouth heals are so significant at level 13.
Yeah, and this is the kind of fight they wanted to look for, where there wasn't really a lot of burst potential on either side, and so they could rely on Malfurion to just use these super efficient heals and keep people in the fight as long as possible as they battle for these shrines.
It's 32-32, another very even objective right now. Glaurung just barely slipping away from Falsehead. He gets some small heals, a double support working out nicely. Jackson is looking for the damage, does have Wailing Arrow. When will it come out? They need a kill here. They need it now. Looking for that Wailing. They don't even use it. Get Sylvanas down. They manage to pick up an Immortal. There's the Wailing Arrow. Huge kills. 4 down. Just Tassadar remaining. The entire team has fallen, and this is going to be a disgustingly large push.
Wow, what a fight this was for compLexity. I mean, again, the super efficient heals from Malfurion, keeping them topped up and make sure they could stay in this fight. If you took a look at Cognitive, they were basically out of mana. They were all low health, and the additional pressure was coming in. There was really no way for them to take that fight, but they felt like it was a desperate situation that they needed to make something happen, and so that overextension cost them major on this bottom side of the map.
It did, and not even just the bottom side of the map, but the fact that they had Falsehead flying to the top. Leoric brought his Ghost to the mid lane, and they're soaking all 3 lanes immediately. This has given them a 2-level advantage, a talent tier advantage on top of that, and they're just going to go forward, pressure this mid lane while the Punisher is eliminating the bottom. Even Falsehead starting to work on this top fort, like just absolutely huge momentum swing.
Yeah, the sustain and the mobility on a map this large really making an impact as far as the lane control is concerned. I mean, it's not so easy to just fall back and heal and run back into battle or grab a well real quick and get back into the fight. These are wide open spaces with a lot of distance to cover. And so because they have Falstad and once again just the overall sustain that their team has, it feels like they're just taking complete control.
They certainly are. And right now it's a situation where Cognitive needs to just get level 16. They need to fall back, regain that XP, get one more full level, and then engage once the battle happens. You see Glaurung looking for anyone that might rotate, trying to get in early ping. Tassadar is right around the corner, but they're well aware that's what they're going to look to do, so they're just going to push us 5 and stay safe and play safe.
Yeah, this is the point where now Sylvanas has picked up that damage, and I mean, now their team fight is looking fantastic at this point. I feel like they're ready to take one basically at any time that they can get one that's even, as far as they're concerned, on even footing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's gonna be tough for that, but they're doing a nice job. I mean, sure, they might have lost the mid fort, but the top fort is still standing, and they're getting rather close to that level 16 talent. Even with Falstead in the top lane getting that split soak, sure, it's pushing them further forward in XP, but it's a nice window where they could try to make something happen.
Yeah, but once again, it's that talent disadvantage, though. It's such a major difference. Like you said, they need to hit 16. They're very close to it, but look what they're giving up in the meantime. Falstead continues to push. compLexity gets a free camp on bottom to make sure that pressure's there as the rotate comes to the top, and now this Shrine activating in the middle, that camp is free to push the bottom side the entire way, and I don't think Cognitive has an option other than to try to create a big fight at this objective right now.
Right, they don't have Falstad. They don't have the same kind of global mobility, which is why you see the entire team making their way down. They're pushing out the mid lane. They're just trying to alleviate as much pressure as they can. They're actually opting to just go for this top Merc camp. They're going to say, you know what, we'll let that bottom camp push, but I think this is a mistake. With Sylvanas mercenary camp, okay, they are backing away, just leaving the Khazra as a distraction while they work on the objective.
Yeah, compLexity just having great pressure in all the lanes, pulling so much attention right when they need it to be. And as they know attention's getting pulled towards that bottom side, they work their way towards the Shrine. They're now ready to fight. It's going to be a 5-4 advantage until Jaina shows up.
She's well on her way, still 2 levels down. They're just kind of playing safely, just looking around, trying to collect as many of these skulls as they can. Still very early. Only the second spawn has begun. It's 8-2, and Glaurung goes deep into the battle right now, taking a fair amount of damage. The double support heals are paying off.
Wow.
Well, and a huge blizzard just shredding through compLexity. A beautiful Entomb locking down Sheth. The silence on Hospital, but Ice Block will keep him up, and now Jaximus doesn't have that haunting wave. Falstead has fallen 3 for 1, just Uther down, trying to slip into the shadows. It's not quite enough. The Frostbolt misses on Caterpillar. Silo has to back away from the keep damage. Can Cattle trade this out? No, the Silo is just staying alive. Hospital will end up falling, but it's still a 4 for 2.
Yeah, major flank here by Jaina. She was able to slip around to the back line completely unnoticed, and then grouped up with compLexity, landed a Kona Cold and a Blizzard on 3 members, and that was enough to completely turn this fight in their favor. Even despite some of the missed skill shots, the damage output was so much in Cognitive's favor that despite the level disadvantage, they take the objective, they take the fight, and now it's looking like they may be able to make something here happen in this mid lane, get some extra pressure back, and maybe even take the lead.
Oh, they're definitely back in this game. Sylvanas just soaking up that stop. Syracuse trying to get a force wall, does not succeed in doing so. But yeah, I mean, it's all about numbing blast. That level 16 power spike, 3 people caught in the full mess of damage that you're throwing at them. It's just such a powerful hero, and they're actually just roaming across the map. Cattle will end up falling. Falset flew in a little bit too aggressively. Drummel will end up just barely slipping into the shadows, trying to trade out with Sonya. Mighty Gus to survive somehow. Falset is still living, and actually, I mean, as good as the defense was, things are completely even now. Look at the experience.
Yeah, I mean, that's not the way you want to be using that Mighty Gust. You want to be using it at the right time to try to create a better team fight. Instead, they're using it here to try to stay alive, but it looks like complexity's content to take a fight anyway.
A big wailing arrow, but they don't have the follow-up. A beautiful disengage here by Complexity, and Silo in the back lane trying to get the big condemn to pull them in, but again, that AoE damage, Strafe is just shredding through them. Glau goes down, Silo falls as well, and this is a full-on aggression, but the Blizzard plays beautifully. Trummel taking a lot of damage himself. Syracuse in enemy lines just trying to buy time for Iacona, but it looks like it's now a reverse wipe, this time in favor of Complexity.
Yeah, utility of Malfurion really illustrated here. That Roots really changed the dynamic of that fight. Cognitive decided they want to try to protect that team member, and as a result, ends up costing them their entire team. At times, you're going to have to know when to just give something up, and right there, they decided that this is where they needed to fight, and now Complexity able to capitalize maximally on this.
They have Sylvanas. They go well past those towers. They just take out the keep, and they're going to try to get the core. They have 25 seconds. Should be plenty of time to end the game here. 16 minutes in. Complexity with a great start here. 16 kills to just the 11. Not actually bad at all on the side of Cognitive, but I got to hand it to Complexity. The way they rotated, the way they soaked, just their decision making when it came to sometimes ignoring objectives to get the experience edge and then find the advantages going to the objective halfway through the fights. It was so beautifully done.
Yeah, that first objective honestly cannot be too terribly important. It's pretty much impossible to lose the game off the first objective.
Oh, yeah.
So they have the long term in mind when that really came to it. And so you take a look at what happened towards the late game when they hit level 16 first. That's when that big power spike happened. Again, the damage amp from Sylvanas gave them the ability to take basically any team fight that they wanted. And so as a result of that, they just rolled around the map, creating pressure and pulling resources away. And then as those objectives turned up, they just rolled back and fought at an advantageous position. Cognitive was able even to turn around that mid-shrine that we saw towards the later stages of the game, but then that one fight at top where Malfurion managed to land a Roots, and they decided that was the fight they needed to take if they wanted to turn this game around, ends up costing them all 5 members and their core.
Yeah, I mean, that's all she wrote, right? Game 1, so really just well played, but I'm curious to see like how they decide to mix things up. Already going into the draft with Sylvanas Vala has become such a like common pairing. The bow ladies, I don't even know what we call them, right? They're just so commonly paired together ever since BlizzCon. Even a little bit prior to BlizzCon, we've started to see that duo, and it's just like it's the power they have in the backline. You talk just poke in general. You're talking about Cold Embrace, that level 16 talent that amplifies the damage. You pair that with Strafe, 25% more damage on your whole team while Strafe is active. It just shreds you like you're nothing. And if you don't have AoE healing, we're talking Uther and Tassadar as your supports, it's really hard to sustain through that. So
yeah, I mean, I take a look at that amount of damage composition, and Sylvanas and Vala, you know, they do have ways of getting away from stuff. I feel like the way to really counter that is just to have a very heavy engage comp. Yeah. That's something that's always dangerous to build. It's very feast or famine. Either you're getting great engages and you're completely smashing team fights, or the engages go awry and your entire team falls apart. So
I mean, they were even looking for that. They had Sonya. They were looking for the party bushes at times. Glaurung just trying to find those players to pick them off. But every time it looked like they would get a pick off, Mighty Gus to just disengage. Just get away from us. It's a short enough cooldown to use it a little bit liberally once in a while. So it just really well done.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of building that great comp, too, is they even had that get-out-of-jail-free button with the Gust of Wind to make sure that if something happened on a big engage, they could still disengage it after that. But at the end of the day, the superior mobility, the superior sustain on such a large map like Infernal Shrines, it's what gave Complexity the edge basically the entire game.
All right, well, we're getting the second draft ready. Things are moving along nicely here. These players are so disciplined with, like, just hopping on in.
These are professionals, Jake.
You're right.
They are ready to go.
Going to shoot you a lobby invite? Yeah.
Yep. So hop right in here and ready to see how this next draft. I mean, when you just saw that happen and you're in Cognitive's shoes, how does that affect the way that you want to ban heroes and the way you want to draft heroes? Because you certainly can't give them a similar composition again. I mean, that felt very one-sided to me.
It did. It just felt like they were trying to, dodge the objective and just outplay them on the map. And well, the fact that they're going to Battlefield of Eternity changes things a little bit since it's only a 2-lane map. You don't have as many options to do that sort of play, right? The mercenary camps are a little bit more predictable here. You know when they're going to try to go for those merc camps, so you can try to punish that. There's a lot of places to hide in the shadows. I think we'll probably see Abathur banned out again just because of how strong he is on this map. But I'm not too sure what we're going to see compositionally. I mean, the thing about COG is they're known to run a pretty melee-heavy composition because of Glaurung. Glaurung is kind of like that star bruiser player. He likes to be in your face on heroes like Kerrigan, Sonya, Illidan, Zeratul, you name it. Heroes that just really bridge that gap and just put out ridiculous amounts of damage, but are still quite fragile in the process. So we'll end up seeing. We actually want to know if you guys think Cognitive will end this or bring this back, or compLexity will end it all here. So again, hit us up on Twitter at WCA_America and use the hashtag WCA2015.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how this comes out. I mean, the thing that I take away from this game is rolling into a smaller map, like you said. Does this give him an opportunity to make a mistake during the banner draft phase and try to fight a similar style composition, knowing that they did so poorly versus it in game number 1? You know, this could be a potential pitfall because, like you said, Glaurung on those melee champions on this smaller map like this, much more dangerous than on these wide open maps where there's plenty of opportunities to get away. You know, this is a spot he just hops out of the bushes, gets a great initiate on someone, that can easily turn into a pick and turn a fight into a 5v4 instantaneously.
It can, but Cognitive, respecting that power of Jaina, we saw just that one fight where Numbing Blast Blizzard just shredded the whole team, so they're going to end up banning her out, and as we predicted, Abathur will not be in play. Just when you throw those toxic nests all over the battleground, not only does it give you vision, you throw the slow on it, you can set up like some incredibly powerful combos, and it gives you the split soak, because if you ever have your whole team trying to fight over the Immortal in the center of the battleground, Abathur is going to get you that XP to give you an edge throughout the game.
Yeah, with that recent patch that came through, I mean, Abathur really picked up in popularity. I mean, just everything you mentioned, the map presence overall that Abathur provides. I mean, it's such a big deal when you're talking about so many wide open maps. You know, in game number 1, we saw what the difference of having that lane presence meant. So to have that banned out, not really have to worry about it, I think it's a fantastic position. And as we were talking about the small map, something else that can really matter in a position like this is just control over the objective and creating a perimeter. Well, Kael'thas does that amazingly in a situation like this, not only coupled with the stun that he has,
gravity lapse,
with gravity lapse, but also just with the Phoenix, the amount of area that provides that threatens damage. I mean, this is, with Uther combined with that, you can very easily also not only initiate, but create that space that you need so your team can take control of the objective.
They're actually putting a big threat on the table for kind of a lockdown composition, right? With Kael'thas, Uther, both of them have strong early game stuns in their base kit. You can throw Murden into the mix, Tyrande into the mix, even another warrior, even just Johanna would work well. We've seen ETC paired with this kind of style. But compLexity, they're going for Sylvanas again, and we saw Wailing have some big plays in that. Tassadar is so useful for just vision control. So in the event that Cognitive wants to go for Zagara and creep up the map all over the center to have that ultimate vision, Tassadar is the best hero in the game at just removing that. Just pop his Oracle, let your team clean up his tumors.
Not only that, but you just mentioned how Glaurung loves to play these melee champions.
Yeah.
To have a backline hero that can kind of get away, but then have support for that as well, that vision also helps reduce the risk that you get picked in a situation like that. And you just mentioned the threat of a lockdown comp with Kael'thas and Uther. You couple Kerrigan with that, I mean, you could very easily kill a champion very early on, or even Sonya for that matter. So to have ways to kind of buy insurance rolling into a certain area, or even just have ways to get away, it kind of looks like they're building the exact same style they just did, where they want to be able to sustain a lot of pressure and rely on the amount of damage Sylvanas can output as they roll towards that level 16 spot to really get them through these fights.
Yeah, definitely exactly what they're trying to do here, but I love everything that's happening. So Tassadar and compLexity, they ban out Zagara to make sure they can't get the creep tumors because of good denial. We see the Murden ban, we talked about how good he is, but he's also denial on melee assassins that are auto-attack heroes because Reverberation is great against that level 1 talent. You mentioned Kerrigan. That's a hero that Glaurung excels on. They ban that out. It's just such smart drafting on both sides.
Yeah.
But Cog, they really need to just figure out what melee assassin makes the most sense, right? They're known for playing some Butcher. We've actually seen Na'Vi do a composition where they actually run Butcher with Falstad on this battleground in particular. They do something where they throw down Lamb to the Slaughter. It locks one hero in a chain, and then they Mighty Gust all of his allies away from him. So he's locked in this one pit, and they blow up. No, they're going for the Bruiser Bros.
Wow.
Arthas and Leoric.
I actually love these two picks right now because if you take a look at really what's available to them in terms of melee initiation, we're looking at stuff like ETC comes to mind, but we already have Black Arrow, we already have Muradin to make not only does his heroic stop that, but he just has a regular stun to begin with. You might need a front line here that can just kind of get in there and start rumbling, create some of that disruption, and give enough space for Kael'thas to really use his toolkit and be their main damage output right now. Right now, this is a single threat composition, but they have the kind of front line that can give Kael'thas the time he needs to make use of that toolkit.
I mean, there's other cool things you can pair with this. In the past, we've seen Kael'thas paired with Azmodan as like this big backline, so the Global Annihilation paired with Living Bomb. But I don't know how much we'll see in Azmodan on this battleground in particular.
Right. I mean, this is a small map, and there's not a lot of lanes that he can just continue to pick off, and compLexity playing right towards that strength again. Falstad to reset these fights in case any engagements go wrong. Tastar just continues to shield out, and Zeratul gets picked up by Cognitive, and I love this pick. They needed some sort of sustained damage. They needed someone with good mobility, and then they also needed a way to set up these fights. I mean, you combine the Sphere with, let's say, Syndragosa, with Leoric being able to get a big Entomb off. You're looking at being able to completely lock down a relatively large area of heroes and then let Phoenix do a ton of work combined with that Living Bomb and just massive amounts of damage output in a short period of time.
Yeah, it's got so many good powers, right? Like you mentioned, the initiation is clutch, right? They have that crazy initiation, but at the same time, with Kael'thas, as he pokes away those targets and Living Bomb starts to explode in chain, quite often you see hero get rather low from that, and then Zeratul can just pick off the stragglers, and it's just one of my favorite things to watch as the team scrambles. They all want to split apart due to the Living Bomb. Chain Bomb at level 13 will actually trigger and hit the enemy heroes, and then just reapply it to them. So you have an incentive to stay away from each other. That's where Zeratul really just thrives, gets in there, and he'll just blink on back out. It's so fun to watch him just hunt for his prey.
And that's the other big benefit of that Zeratul pick, like you mentioned, his capacity to 1v1 heroes as they continue to get spread out. I mean, compLexity has a big incentive to not stay grouped up in a situation like this, but Cognitive has a big incentive to both group them up and to split them up at this point. So I feel like right now, this is going to come down to who actually just plays their composition.
Of course. I mean, that's how it should be. Both compositions have a lot of power. I mean, we see the disengage with Falstad. I mean, making sure you have the Mighty Gust for those right moments is going to be crucial. Falstad players are getting better and better with just staying, like, being unkillable, essentially. That hero is one of the few heroes in the game that can really outplay your opponent in a lot of situations with something like Mighty Gust.
Yeah, pretty significant cooldowns on him, but very powerful cooldowns. At that, like you mentioned, just the mobility, the map presence he can provide. Again, this is a 2-lane map, so that's not too much of importance, really. I think the Gust of Wind is the big one here. But when I look at the way these styles need to be played, I feel like compLexity is being kind of funneled into a single style of play where Cognitive's style can be a lot of different things at the same time. And so just because of an option standpoint, I feel like they have a big advantage.
Okay, well, our game was almost ready, and now we have some tech difficulties, so we can see this beautiful screen here. It is paused currently, but no, I mean, I'm completely with you, right? So it's just going to come down to a combination of things, like how greedy do they get for the mercenary camps? How well do they use the mercenary camps for timings when we do see those immortals spawn in the center of the map? And at the end of the day, who has the better poke, right? So we see Kael'thas, he's pretty good at just kind of throwing out stray flame strikes and phoenixes to just work away at the immortal, and that's something that they need to be able to respond to.
Not only that, but the hero poke they have with Zeratul as well, the ability to just kind of jump in real quick, put out a little bit of damage, and then get right back to safety. And if the engagement goes awry, he can still get out of it with his heroic ability to lock it down and maybe even set up a better team fight. This is a lot of objective play that compLexity is going to have to be very careful with. If they overstep their boundaries even just a little bit, maximum punishment could come in. And I think that's the kind of pressure that Cognitive really needs to put on compLexity, really put them to the test and make them make the best decisions they possibly can. When you're trying to the way you lose a game is you make mistakes. So the more opportunities you give your opponent to make mistakes, the more likely it is they're going to make one.
It's a pretty good strategy.
Yeah, it's a great strategy. And Cognitive, I'm taking Cognitive in this one, even despite what we saw in game number 1, where I feel like oftentimes they were just a little bit overextended or maybe not responding in time. I think their team composition, the strategy they set up, is beautiful for this game. I think we're going to game number 3, but we're going to have to see them fight it out on the battlefield to see who's taking this one home.
The battlefield of eternity at that. And yeah, right now it's going to be the blue team Cognitive versus the red team complexity. Currently a 1-0 advantage for complexity. We'll see if they can bring it back.
Yeah, a lot of interesting stuff comes up here. You know, this is oftentimes you see 4-1 splits taking place with the tanky hero kind of being in the top lane, the one with the most sustain. Just the ability to make sure that they can put pressure on structures, maybe defend off against that pressure at the same time, and just be all around pretty safe. I mean, it's pretty difficult to gank a Leoric or to gank a Tassadar in these kinds of situations, so they're often going to be soloing. Meanwhile, in bottom lane, though, these 4 versus 4 fights, these little skirmishes that are always potential to take place when this is happening, you know, this could easily turn into a big snowball effect. Say if one of your heroes gets picked in the wrong spot.
It's definitely a dicey situation, and I just want to take a moment to talk about the talents again. We're seeing Lost Soul once again, so just the emphasis on being able to spam that W as often as you can, throw that cold embrace out at the later parts of the game. And looking at the left side, we see that Cognitive is actually running with Regen Master twice. They have Reanimation there on Leoric, and they're running Conjurer's Pursuit. Just a very sustained style draft, or at least early picks for their team.
Yeah, I mean, being able to kind of farm up these orbs over time and give your team that ability to continue just to fight a long fight, a very important thing, I think, for this composition, given that you look at Complexity's comp, they don't have a lot of pick potential in this build right now. I mean, aside from Muradin getting a great stun into a Roots, into all of the damage being focused into one hero, that's really their pick potential. Everything else just comes to the toe-to-toe fight. So the fact that they have 5 orb effects to give them that long-term advantage, they can have a little bit of room to sacrifice in the early game and make sure they get to a better late game spot.
Yeah, all right, well, both teams just opting to funnel down and try to get all their damage onto the Immortals, putting us to the halftime show where they'll then reposition to the left and right sides respectively. Actually, on opposing sides, so it's just going to be erased. Trummel flying in the moment he sees that happening, and they're trying to burn through this. Looks like it will be slightly... Oh, it is
this
so
is down to the wire.
I don't even know who's going to win. Who won?
Looks like Cognitive took this one
with 9 hit points
just
left.
by a hair. Actually,
9 hit points.
One of the reasons they got this, by the way, you saw Psylol, he used Wraithwalk to dodge the stun, and just the blink of an eye, that extra auto attack is like literally the difference between them taking the first objective and not. But again, the first one, not too terribly important, certainly a minor advantage to them, I would say, but the experience lead right now is over in Complexity's favor. How quickly is that to turn around? I mean, can they take advantage of the fact maybe they can get that snowballing? Sylvanas looks like they're trying to take a fight here, almost caught out of position, but able to get to safety thanks to her wonderful escape abilities.
Yeah, that Wraithwalk is, the Haunting Wave, excuse me, just great for getting out of a lot of bad spots. The first Immortal did manage to get 1 tower, and they tried to get the split push on, a very common strategy for the first Immortal. Of course, if you have some shields, you can force a stronger response out of your opponents, but just 9 shield on that Immortal, not going to do a whole lot of damage. And this has actually signaled an early attempt at a mercenary camp. We see Hans trying to get eyes on. Laurang finds Hans here, but they're giving Muradin ample time to pick up this Khazra camp.
Yeah, Complexity really focused on picking up his camps, but maybe this is going to backfire a little bit. He's forced off the spot. Cognitive picks up that camp. No investment from them other than simply a rotation.
Beautifully done. I mean, they managed to go up there, they steal it, they don't lose any time, they don't lose any minions, they gave up nothing other than just, well, nothing.
Uther gets caught in the roots here.
Oh, Trummel is getting really low, but not, wow, the Singularity Spike just barely not enough for the kill. Chef throwing down the heals, he's going to go back to basic and fly back into action. Doesn't want to risk it.
Yeah, already you're seeing, too, the pick potential from Zeratul. I mean, just the amount of pressure that's created by a hero that, you know, it's pretty hard to spot where they're going because of the passive that brings them into that stealth effect. It's very difficult to keep track of them on the map unless they're already out of stealth. So the fact that they can pop out at any time and apply a lot of pressure, once again, Complexity is kind of being pushed into playing a little bit more safe of a game altogether, which is going to give Cognitive the time they need to scale into the late game, given their across-the-board level 1 talents to pick up these orbs and make a difference later on.
Okay, well, level 7 for both teams. It's a full-on Stormbolt build for Muradin. And again, it looks like it's just going to be a race. Neither team looking to actually fight over the Immortals. They just want to get the damage done. But a different strategy here this time, actually. Cognitive picks up this mercenary camp on the left side, the Bruiser camp. Then they're going to go for the battle. And as soon as we see that halftime show begin, they have the advantage, right? There's a Mercer camp that needs to be responded to by compLexity.
Yeah, it's in the bot lane too, and Zeratul already there
He's
to make
hunting.
sure that that he can counter pressure this right away. And you can see Falstad getting caught a little bit out of position here. Big damage comes in, and Zeratul's going to leap in and try to take this fight, but maybe it's a little bit oversold. He gets caught out of position. Root's going to lock him in place. Arthas trying to get in that back line, but no benefit from that. Meanwhile, you see Leoric being able to use that Wraithwalk to escape himself. And now it's just damage on the Immortal with compLexity having a 5v4 advantage. Easy for them to take this objective.
Yeah, just the tip of the roots there, catching Glaurung right on his foot and locking him in place. Just nicely positioned there. Props to Sheth. I mean, he was a competitive Heroes player, formerly Cloud9, formerly Team Liquid for a long time. But now making his reappearance as a trial with compLexity, he is looking great on Malfurion.
Yeah, and that little fight right there, that skirmish, kind of an example, I think, of something Cognitive wants to avoid for the time being. They don't need to take these big risks, I don't think, because their comp is just scaling so well into this late game. They have two great front lines. They have Kael'thas, who gets more and more dangerous every single level that ends up happening here. So to take that kind of fight, I admire their tenacity and their gusto in that situation, but maybe that's the sort of situation they want to try to avoid in the future.
Ooh, yeah, but this is a situation that they want to avoid. Sylvanas pushing with the Immortal. Now, its shields have expired. It actually expends its shields as an energy, as a long-range attack. And once those go down, it switches to a melee mode where it becomes quite more vulnerable to the enemy team's damage. So as it makes its way to this back keep, it shouldn't last too long, but even getting a single tower, 650 experience will be granted, and that is plenty.
And a full level advantage at this point too. Now heroics are available, and this is the power that Sylvanas picked. When you take these objectives, a lot of ability to gain momentum from that. The fact that her passive is going to shut off tower attacks. I mean, that blocks out a lot of the damage. Not only that, but the great wave clear to make sure that your opponents have to use their abilities simply to keep control of the wave themselves. So being able to make a lot of ground here, try to keep Cognitive from being able to scale in late game. That's their win condition this game.
It definitely is. I mean, they need 10. They need to just kind of fall back, regain their control here, Cognitive, of the battleground. The fact that they've lost these two towers means that if there's ever a mercenary who can push them to this top lane like they're about to experience, they have to respond to it much more quickly than they previously had to in this map. So really, compLexity set themselves up so nicely for the mid game.
Yeah, it's two mercenary camps that are pushing in the top lane, by the way.
That is not what you want to see.
It's not, but Kael'thas, he's pretty darn good at cleaning up waves.
That's true.
You might have heard he's got quite a bit of AoE damage, but he's got to make sure he's safe first. He wants to get eyes on the map, see that compLexity is on the bottom side. When that happens, then he feels safe to kind of make his way out there. I mean, Kael'thas is not very good at escaping from any engagement, so he needs to be able to be protected. But they're having to respond to this bottom pressure, 4 heroes versus 5 at the moment. And once again, Sylvanas, that ability to lock off the tower shots, especially on this fortress, that the slowing effect and the attack speed slow on that tower can really make a big difference. So having Sylvanas to be able to shut that off helps you continue this siege.
Yeah, and the fact that Kael'thas is still stuck defending those mercy camps in the top, just now was successful in doing so, can make his way down here to help with the defense. The big benefit here, though, although they might end up losing this fort, and they've lost the structures in the front, this wall here, is they were split soaking. So they've kept the experience relatively even in that regard, and they're trying to push them away from this bottom fort, which is now quite weak.
Yeah, don't have great lane control at the moment, but again, the big thing is that they saved this fort, they held off this siege, and it's just in time for this fight. So, again, the fight's on relatively even footing right now. The fact that no one's soaking any experience means it's going to be 11 versus 11. So this is a matter of whether or not they can capitalize on this. You can see Sylvanas head to that bottom lane, try to get that level 12 real quick. Gives them just that ever little bit of statistical advantage when it comes to these fights. But it looks like compLexity just being posturing very aggressively here, while Glaurung tries to find his way to the back line and maybe even just put a little bit of damage on this Immortal in the meantime.
This is such a different game from game number 1. Only 1 kill so far. We saw that first blood, and no one else has fallen at this point. Catching up in XP due to their just rotating to the lane and soaking that top lane a little bit is Cognitive. And they've done a nice job zoning away from their Golem. They're immortal, excuse me.
compLexity's doing an excellent job of keeping their spread, by the way, making sure they don't get caught in these big AoE effects. You can see Chef's going to get caught in this tomb right here. They're taking the fight.
Oh, the Void Prison is beautiful. Chef taking a lot of damage, and he will go down. Nice focus there from Glaurung. Silo trying to stay alive. Trumbull in the back gets out. The Divine Shield, but no, Leoric needs to leave this battle. Even with that Drain Hope, not enough damage, but the Force Wall is exactly what Hans needed to do there to get them out of that situation. Even with the nice disengage, they're now going to take so much damage on their Immortal.
Yeah, and that's the thing about it, is this composition doesn't necessarily need to be getting 5 hero engages to make a difference. If you just pick one hero, that gives you an advantage in an objective fight.
Yeah, but they need to be careful. Silo, Syracuse Hospital, they don't have the most health right now. Actually, Silo having to get out of there with that Wraith Walk, but Trumbull does manage to get the pick off. A Force Wall used rather prematurely, not going to be able to pick anyone off here. They're just disengaging from Cattle, but the poke is happening now on the opposite side.
Chef now has come back to this fight, so it's been turned around. It's a 5-4 in their favor, and you can see the mobility here from Falstad really making a big difference. Even in a situation where he may have been caught out of position, use his gust to win, make sure he stays safe, keep your 5 versus 4 advantage, and try to fight this Immortal fight.
All right, it's going to turn into a race, and it looks like it will be in favor of Cognitive. They're down to full level. They're down to talent tier. They don't want to fight. This is the right call, but can they do it in time? No, it's compLexity that edge out, and they will have the power of that third Immortal this game.
Yeah, but 3 heroes headed back to Fountain to make sure they can have enough mana to try to fight this. Arthas trying to do what he can in the bottom lane to try to keep this wave control, but he knows that this is potentially a dangerous position for him. He doesn't know that compLexity is fully backing up in this situation to reset and try to fight a big fight right here. So this Immortal going to have time to work its way down this lane. There's no pressure on it at the moment. We're going to find out if compLexity can really capitalize on this fight right here. Cognitive needs to have a good fight right here, keep as many towers as they can up, and not take too much damage.
This is when things start to get a lot harder for Cognitive, though. Zeratul has done a great job getting in there and getting the kill. Glaurung's beautiful at that. But now that Malfurion has Ice Block, now that Tassadar is going to have Prescience, that those 2 supports become very hard to kill, and they still have Mighty Gust for the big disengage. They're even going for Spell Shield on Sylvanas.
Big flank on the backside for Glaurung, though. He's looking for the right moment to strike. It's a 4-person Void Sphere.
Oh no, he's just clipped by the edge of it though, and the Entomb was completely wasted in the Mighty Gust disengage. Wailing Arrow was thrown as well. Hospital just being blown up so quickly. Divine Shield the last moment to keep him standing, and you can see the self-sustain is just ridiculous with all those ghouls being consumed.
Yeah, once again, super efficient heals from Malfurion. Despite the 4-person sphere that was landed, they really just didn't have the damage output to capitalize on this moment. compLexity they're so tanky at this point. The Tassadar pick, the Malfurion pick, as well as with Muradin. I don't know if they really have the damage at the moment to wipe them out in one of these big engagements just yet. They need that level 16.
It's a tough situation. That is for sure. We'll see if they can pull it back. Heroic timers appear to be rip. Sorry about that, folks. But we can see at the bottom, we do have all those talents still viewable for us. So we'll go with that. Now, mercenary camps are being collected. We do see, again, this Bruiser camp on the left side will march against the Khazar camp, and it's a big damage being thrown out. Prescience does get popped on Tassadar. Hans trying to get away, but Glaurung with the beautiful Void Slash.
Yeah, nice pick there from Cognitive. Maybe they can make something out of this, and that Phoenix, once again, just putting out a lot of damage and making sure to create a perimeter. They can't really get re-engaged on while that Phoenix is down. But right here, wow, taking a lot of damage there, but it's largely inconsequential at this point. He's going to be able to heal up quite nicely. Really nothing coming of that. So they're just going to rotate back around, having to respond to this topside pressure. So able to get a little bit out of that pick, but they're going to need a few more of those if they really want to get into a favorable position. Again, they're hunting for that level 16, but compLexity already has it. And then you kind of look at the way the talents are panning out. The Giant Killer on Falstad really makes a big difference here. Cognitive has those 2 tanked heroes as the front line, but that extra damage from Falstad will help shred them down a little bit. So they're kind of forced to just try to trade Immortal fights here, do as much damage as they can to alleviate the pressure that they know is going to come from this.
Yeah, Cog is... I mean, as much as they're trying to, they're very much behind in the Immortals, and they don't have those level 16 talents. So this is just a tough spot to be in. And now that we actually see Hammer Time being picked up by Falstad, it becomes like an AI auto tech beast. You throw out with Giant Killer, you have Seasoned Marksman at level 1. When you start focusing down Leoric and Arthas, they will just take so much damage from Falstad.
Now you can see they're trying to get to that back line and put a lot of pressure on Falstad, but he's so well protected in this situation. They have shields from Tassadar. He has to disengage himself. There's always a threat of the Gust, the roots from Malfurion, but there's an engagement right there. Jaximus so low and then Tomb's going to try to knock this down. It's an all-out brawl in the center lane. Phoenix putting out so much damage at the moment. Void Sphere going to lock down 2 of these heroes, but Muradin doing a great job to help defend this. And it looks like this fight may turn around just a little bit, but did they overextend? Shet's in the middle of this fight as Malfurion, but damage not being able to be poured on him. It's really just Glowing by himself, and then Leoric is going to fall in the meantime here. It's now a 4 versus 4. I'm sorry, Leoric wasn't the one to fall there. He's in the middle of the fight, trying to back up a little bit. Arthas trying to get some damage output here, but it's really just kind of a back-and-forth battle. Not really any way to put on a ton of damage, but there's a big stun! And they're going to be able to finish this off, take this Immortal fight, and once again, it ends up in favor of complexity. These level 16 talents really gave them the edge in this fight, despite the way this engagement happened.
That's really what it boiled down to there. I almost thought they were going to save Sylvanas. If Sheth was a moment sooner with Tranquility, I think it actually would have been possible. Just a beautifully well-done defense. The power of Entomb being thrown out, they responded with Mighty Gust to get the defense, throw down that Tranquility, buy the time they needed with Force Wall, and just use all of these zone control heroics in that situation to defend against the approach there from Glaurung. But now Glau's in a bit of a bad spot. We see Haunting Way over the wall, a nice stun there, but the Divine Shield keeping him up, trying to trade out with Tremble. Phoenix thrown just to zone, and it looks like Glaurung will be able to slip away.
Yeah, and Tomb is used there also. I mean, it's a lot of defensive mechanics used just to try to protect Glaurung, to keep him from falling. And this is really where complexity can make something happen in this. They know they're 2 heroics down on Cognitive side at the moment, and it looks like they're just going to try to force a fight with this Immortal.
Yeah, the bottom or the top keep here, the final remaining structure on the side of Cognitive has fallen. In complexity, they are very close to claiming that $8,000 first place prize pool. If they manage to finish this out, the Immortal is falling quickly. VP on 3 targets. This is going to be hard to do. They're focusing on the Immortal. The right call here. They need to turn around and try to get the setup. The VP ends just at the last possible moment, and with that force ball, they're able to slip away unscathed.
Yeah, having to use that Void Prison defensively, that was really the right time to make that call. They needed that Immortal to be down to make sure they can even this push up, but they continue this fight, and an engagement breaks out, gets caught in the roots here, and then finally in the back line. No pressure out on Sylvanas after the stun, meanwhile, and this fight may have turned around, and Tomb comes out, doesn't catch anyone in it. Phoenix is going to try to create a perimeter here, but so much damage is getting poured out on Arthas, just shredded in the back line, and they're going to have to retreat. Half health for everyone, and look at Complexity's side. Still so healthy, still enough mana, but not a wave here to make something of this push. It's just more picks and more experience edge for them.
Yeah, I mean, props to Silo for that Entomb. He actually really tried to use it just as like a force wall, essentially, like a big defensive wall to try to split up the team and buy time for yourself, but still not enough to keep Hospital alive on Arthas. At the end of the day, though, I mean, how much does it matter? It's still full map control here for Complexity. They're collecting all of the mercenary camps. All the lanes are pushed out. Keeps are completely destroyed, and there's still a single fort standing on their side.
Yeah, really going to... I mean, this is the point they wanted to get to. They wanted to make sure that they have these scaling late-game abilities to make sure they can get this damage output on Kael'thas at the moment. But right now, they just don't have the map control. Their team's being split up. So Complexity has done a great job of making sure they can't fight this team fight. But look at that camp just being taken. They just forced their way into that camp at top and made sure they can take it.
They just spent Divine Shield very early in a fight. If they get false dead, maybe it's worth it. Mighty Gust in the wrong direction, flies over the wall, but a beautiful fight either way. We see the Blink able to get on out of there. Glaurung looking to try to get the damage done. No, blinking away. Silo has to Wraith Walk. No one getting ahead of falling. Baby Glaurung, one more hit would do it, but the VP is spent.
Yeah, it looks like this is just going to be disengage for Cognitive, or at least try to disengage. Complexity's just going to chase this one down. They're going to fight.
Silo has gone down. Jack Smith is flying on in. They get the stun onto Syracuse. False head with an aggressive fly. Mighty Gust could really push them into a bad spot. Wheeling Arrow locking down those abilities for a short while, but the roots are too much for Syracuse to slip away. Glaurung goes down, and I think that's going to be just about it.
Yeah, this mobility from them and their ability to chase down, and once again, the Malfurion utility, using those roots to keep someone in place so they can maintain these chases. It's just too much pressure from Complexity. They kept Cognitive split the entire time, and there is no way that Cognitive can stay in this game. It is GG.
See you guys in Siberia. Esports in Siberia, boys. We did it. We made it.
All the way there.
Of course, the finals will be in China. A 2-0 victory for Complexity, taking that $8,000 first place. Well done, GG.
Yeah, I thought Cognitive definitely had the advantage in the team composition here, but Complexity just did such a great job. on map control. And once again, the fact that they're having so much lane pressure is splitting Cognitive up in these situations. Their team composition really relied on having 5 people versus 5 people and creating a situation that was difficult for compLexity. But because they could split up those ultimates, force them to use them defensively, they could just never get any footing in this game and weren't able to take one massive team fight to really turn it in their favor.
Yeah. I mean, they did it. They took the prize. They played beautifully. I mean, busting out Falstad in both games. Falstad, Sylvanas at that. Falstad is back, guys. I mean, he's actually going to see some new changes in the PTR. They've shifted him up a little bit with Gathering Power returning in our PTR. If you guys haven't played it, it's actually a very different game, seemingly. But Falstad actually lost it, and they've given him some new towers or some new talents at level 1 that empowers his boomerang every time he throws it out, giving it more and more damage for every time it clips a hero. So, I mean, new Falstad styles might even be born, but just seeing him play to this level for disengages, engages, that aggressive fly forward to get those last kills, it's so fun to watch.
Yeah, the utility that hero provides is just spectacular to watch. I mean, once again, significant cooldowns, but if you use them in the right way, very dangerous cooldowns as well. And when they hit that giant killer talent, and he was able to just melt their front line when they tried to engage.
That style.
Wow. I mean, what a powerful effect that was. And then you combine that with the damage amplification from Sylvanas.
Yeah.
Their backline was nigh untouchable in this situation. And once again, when you force those heroics defensively, like compLexity did from Cognitive Gaming, they really had no way to get a massive engage off in that situation. And Falstad was really the catalyst to that entire team composition.
Well, we can see that bracket. compLexity not only won against Cognitive earlier today in the winners bracket, but they were victorious in the grand finals as well. Chef making his return appearance. I mean, it looked good here with compLexity, honestly. Busting out Malfurion 2 games in a row. I'm curious, how is Uther, Karazim, Rhaegar, Brewing, all his other supports are doing, but is Malfurion, I mean, that is something to be fearful of.
Yeah, that was another big catalyst at that point, too. You know, the fact that they knew these team fights were likely to go for a very long time because of the Falstad disengage potential. Just being able to shore up all of their weaknesses with their team compositions, you know, as long as they can mechanically execute that, that's a very difficult lineup to fend off. I mean, what would you have done in a situation like that?
I mean, they just have to look for those burst picks, and Glaurung was doing his best, but when you're fighting against that much control, even if you get the perfect Void Prism, which we saw earlier in the game, it works out, right? But there were a few times where they tried to Void Prison Entomb. They want to seclude Malfurion, essentially. He has Ice Block in those situations, too. He can buy so much time for himself to survive in those situations. So they just had all the right answers. The positioning was there. The roots were not flawless, but very good. It's just well played.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And then just, again, the mobility from Falstad. I mean, sure, you can engage on him, but he can just slip out of those situations. And not only that, but create a lot of momentum damage on the backswing of that, too. You know, you find yourself a little bit out of position. He has great range, sets up a great perimeter for your team, and he is the threat that you need to take down. Sylvanas is very important, but mind you, if you've engaged on that Falstad, Sylvanas still has the ability to slip away, still has Black Arrow to protect yourself, and they can still disengage with Falstad even if things go awry.
And the other thing that we learned about Falstad today is the new skin has the best BM in the game. The fact that you can just spam your mount whistle and just whistle at your opponents repeatedly, that is beautiful. Blizzard, please do not patch that.
Yeah, me coming from Hearthstone personally, I know that BM is just, it's the most important thing that you can have in the game.
I mean, heroes in general just needs like more quotes, right? Taunts, quotes, right? I want to be able to taunt my opponent like that. The whistle taunt, the bee walking, it's a necessity.
I totally agree with you. I want to see more showmanship.
Very good. Well, guys, as we saw the bracket there, those two teams will be advancing to the World Finals along with Cloud9, Tempo Storm. Those will be our 4 teams representing North America, arguably the top 4 teams in America, of course. And they will be joined by several teams from Europe and across Asia as well. That will be happening later this year with a prize pool over $250,000. The second largest prize pool, only next to BlizzCon, really.
Yeah, which Cloud9, where they emerged victorious. I mean, we've seen that the North American team emerged as the best performing team over the 2015 year. Can they repeat that performance when they head over to WCA?
You know, they're already in China. They're already playing in the Gold League in Shanghai. So they're assimilated. They're ready for the WCA Global Finals, and I just can't wait to see it all run down because, I mean, WCA is putting together something really quite awesome for heroes, investing an incredible amount of resources and funds into a game so young as this. I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah, I can't wait to see more competition I love what Heroes of the Storm has done to this genre of gameplay, what they bring to it, and really focusing on the team aspect of play. That's something that, coming from a lot of other games, oftentimes can be missing. But in Heroes of the Storm, it's no lack of it there. It's important to have that team synergy. And when you're in Cloud9's position, you're the World Championships. What better time to head over there, take up some big competition, make sure that you can snowball this effect and really cement yourself as the most dominant team in Heroes of the Storm.
Well, that's exactly what compLexity did. I think that's going to do it for us tonight, but be sure to head on over to Twitter. You can follow us at WCA_America and use the hashtag WCA2015. That's Admiral Solid Jake signing out. We'll see you next time.